Well, you guys are going to work on the machine I beloved, okay? So
I know, it's really good, isn't it?
I know. So I'm going to let you do your thing, and
we'll see you back in a little bit, all right? So Amanda, have a seat, and I'm just going to let you take the steering wheel and drive this car, okay?
Okay, that sounds good. Today, we're going to, I actually made this piece for you guys. I wanted to show you that you don't have to be an expert to do custom quilting. I wanted to show people that they can just have a few designs that they're comfortable with and produce something spectacular and special, and then gradually they'll add to their skill set.
Machine quilting, even this many years into it, is still a very frightful thing for a lot of people, and I'm not good at it, I can't do it, and all of that. And this is a segment where you want to break it down and make it believable and doable for everybody, right?
Right, because you will get better with time. You'll have more control as you work. So right here, I've done actually some really simple quilting. I just have some meanders, and then I have some loops. That's all I've done, plus rulers.
So slowly show me the meanders
okay,
again.
So just in this background area, I have some meanders, and we can actually see it on the other side. Right?
Right.
And all that's really doing, it's going to allow the other quilting to puff up.
Okay. Excellent.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I have some loops. And loops are usually one of the designs I recommend for beginners because it's like handwriting.
Good. And now let's flip this to the back side so we can see that a little bit better as well. So this is in the block, but you've done that diamond and you've put some sort of squiggly loops.
Right. And it really could be any design. And, you know, as you get better and better, you could put a feather in there. You can do leaf shapes. But the point is that this organic shape contrasts with the straight lines.
The straight lines.
And that, so I wanted, this is what's more interesting to quilt. You know, you don't want to have to do the same thing over and over. You want to try different things. So we're going to start with templates.
Okay, let's talk about the machine you're on so that everybody understands this.
Okay, this is the lovely Q16 Plus.
Okay.
It also can go on a frame. The Q20 also fits in a table, and both machines can go to the frame, so they're really flexible.
And the 16 and 20 has to do with the length of this,
the throat space.
Okay.
The throat space. So the 20 is a little bigger, but it's a great entry point into quilting. And this machine is solely a quilting machine. That's why it does what it does so well, right? It's a straight stitch machine, and it has stitch regulation in the base of the machine, so I can use any foot and still have stitch regulation.
Right. And these two eyeballs, I'm going to call them, are actually reading the fabric and letting the needle know how to stay even and smooth and give you beautiful stitches.
Right.
It's kind of a little bit of a helpful tool.
Well, and you can start going faster when you're doing all your in the ditch stitching because the machine's taking care of that.
All right.
Okay. So I first have to make some points. So here you'll see I already did a diamond in this shape. And the way I did it is
So let me go back just because we want to show this. This is the diamond that you've done with ruler work. Is that right?
Right.
All right.
And
How did you mark it, though?
Right. So all I really need, as far as reference points go, are the points of the diamond. I don't have to mark the whole line like I would with a walking foot.
Okay.
Okay. So basically, I just chose a distance. I said I'm going to have my pivot point 1 inch in from the corner.
Okay.
But that's just arbitrary. You can do
choose
whatever
anything
you want, right? And then I tried to make, and I'm going to make a darker mark than I would make at home.
Okay, and tell me about the marker that you're using.
This is a wash away marker. Now, I will say, once you have to make sure that you spray it out, get it wet, and remove the marks before you hit the quilt with the iron. And ask me how I know that.
How do you know that?
Because I once did marks in a border and then ironed on my binding and forgot to remove the marks, and they were in there permanently.
Oh, okay.
So you definitely want to remove it. I also frequently use chalk liners, like white chalk.
Okay.
I didn't bring that with me this time.
You know what I used once upon a time? A bar of soap that I kind of whittled into a wedge, and I could just mark with a little bar of soap.
Yeah, so there's lots of different ways where you can mark, but I wanted to mark with something we could see on camera.
Sure.
And now I'm going to mark one of the big diamonds too, just so you can see. This diamond, of course, I need to make 1, 2, 3, 4 marks for the pivot point.
Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4. I got it. Okay.
And so I'm dividing up the shape, and I'm just using, this is my every angle quilting template. I'm just using this to actually make the marks.
So, and also, while you're doing that, I just am going to reiterate what you just said. These are the Amanda Murphy rulers.
Yes, they're my babies.
And these are available just really at quilt shops everywhere,
Yeah,
right?
independent quilt shops. Yeah. So, okay. So I have the marks, and you know, one time I made marks on camera with a Sharpie, and someone wrote to me they had made marks with a Sharpie. Thinking it was just a practice piece, and I never. So don't use a Sharpie.
Don't use a permanent. Don't use ballpoint pen, and don't even use pencil if you can avoid it.
Yeah, and even the friction pens, I don't really can be difficult to get out. So I really stick with either a water soluble pen or with chalk.
All right.
That's what I usually do.
This is going to be ruler work? Is that right?
Right. So we have a ruler foot on. This is the 72 S foot. It's called the S foot because there's a little slit right there. And the advantage of that is that you can trade feet, like for the 73 open toe foot or something like that, without clipping your thread.
Right.
So this is kind of a new
I noticed that you
invention.
put the thread right in there, and I went, wow.
Yeah.
That's really a really great feature.
It's a time saver. So what we're going to do first is bring our bobbin thread to the top. You have to do this step. If you don't, it looks fine from the top and not so fine from the bottom.
That's a bird's nest on the back.
Right. So you only do that once, and then you learn. Okay. So I've brought my bobbin thread to the top here, and then the main thing to remember, both on a Q series and on a domestic machine, is you never, ever, ever bring your template over till your foot's down.
Okay.
Because that, if I crashed on that ruler, that could throw off the timing.
Okay.
So this is
tip. Great tip.
Keep your templates in a cart. Keep them somewhere where you're not going to bring them over. So what I do is I start sewing. In this case, the machine brings the foot down when I start sewing. And you know, we could debate different ways of starting and ending threads for days.
Right, and that happened because you hit the gas and you are barefooted, which Alex mentioned at the
Very
top
important.
of the show, because you really want control with your foot. Your foot is feeling the way your hands are feeling, really.
Right, and right now, because I'm on the Q series, I am in a stitch regulation mode. On a domestic, I would be in a manual mode. Right?
Okay, sure.
So the stitch regulation mode is going to keep all my stitches even. And I have it set right now on 10 stitches per inch, which is the default.
Okay.
When you're beginning stitching, a lot of times people make those tiny, tiny stitches to begin.
Can't pick them out.
Okay, well, you're never going to get them out.
But I
you
also
can
think
lock
it doesn't look,
stitches that way.
and it doesn't look so pretty because the stitches are so tight. We need to see stitches. I think the stitches are beautiful.
So you have basically two options. You can either start off at your normal stitch length and then bury the threads later.
Right.
Or you can start with the tiny stitches, and you could do it in a place like right along the seam where you're not going to see it.
Sure.
And then your stitches are locked that way.
Okay.
Either way is going to work. Just because I can show you here, I'm going to start with tiny stitches. So I'm going to adjust it on the screen to make it 17 or 18 stitches per inch. And I'm just going to do some tiny stitches to begin. And that's going to lock my threads.
And that was a little forward and back or a little
you
left
don't
and right
always
or
have
whatever.
to do it. I didn't think about doing it to begin
sure.
with. So, you know, some people say no back stitching.
I'm
like whatever works.
If you can hide it, it works great.
Well,
especially.
but honestly, I would have normally probably been traveling along a line coming here.
Sure.
And
right.
I seldom end my threads unless I have to end my threads. It slows me down.
Sure.
Okay?
I get it.
So now I need to make sure I'm on that 10 stitches per inch to start off. And I'll show you in a minute what I do on a domestic. But what I want to do is aim for that point. And if I'm aiming for that point, I want my template snug
Snug on
along
the
foot. And then I want to be a 1/4 inch away from the point I'm trying to hit. And it doesn't have to be perfect. Quilting's about texture,
Sure.
texture, not line, right? It's hard for us as piecers to get used to that, but it really is more about the texture. So I want people to notice how I'm holding the template.
Yeah.
It's tempting to hold it like this because that's the way we sew, but this is going to be much more stable.
And you've got a hand on, each hand is on the ruler holding it in place.
And now I want to be a 1/4 inch away from that point I'm trying to hit. And if you didn't hit your point,
perfect, it's fine.
It's still fine. I think I'll go up and do one of these.
Okay.
And normally I do kind of plan the way I'm going to go. And you'll notice I'm not rotating the quilt, right?
Right.
I'm rotating the template.
Okay, sure.
Now, if your template slides, don't wait till you're at the point to fix it, right?
Okay.
Instead, if you slid a lot, what you can do, see, now you know I make a lot of mistakes. You do a few stitches and you adjust the template a little more. A few stitches and adjust it more.
And it just gets back into situation.
Right. You don't want to wait till you're at the corner because that's where your eye's going to pull to.
All right. I have have to believe, because you just keep sewing while I'm talking here.
Okay.
I have to believe that that when you're doing this with the ruler, it takes a while to get comfortable with holding the ruler and moving the quilt and getting the needle going. There's 3 things happening there.
Well, and you also, it's the pressure. So one of the things that beginners usually do is either they're not pushing against the foot enough, in which case they're basically free motioning while holding a ruler.
Right.
Or they're pushing way too much and their foot will work its way off. So, you know, I always say when I change my bobbin, I also check that my foot is securely on, especially for beginners. That's really, really, really important. The other thing this machine has, though, is it has numeric thread tension. When you come from a domestic background, you say, what's the big deal? But most long arms don't have that.
Okay.
So that will really help you adjust your tension.
All right, now I'm going to push us forward on time.
Okay.
Let's get to the free motion part of this, which I also think it means standing up, which makes this table adjustable, right?
Right.
So
this is totally optional. You can quilt free motion standing down or sitting up. The reason why I like to do the ruler work sitting down usually is because I stop and start a lot. And so I like to use my foot pedal for that. But you can actually quilt without the foot pedal with this machine using a feature called Kickstart. So first we're going to raise it.
And this is kind of exciting because it comes with this, here we go. I feel like I'm David Copperfield here doing magic tricks. And do you have this set to be at the top height that it works for you? Can you set it at different heights?
I'm height challenged, right? So I don't have it at the top height that would work for you. I have the top height that would work for me. But you know, I will change the height as I quilt. Sometimes you just need that extra inch to stand up straight.
Sure.
The other thing I see is people sometimes use reading glasses for quilting, and it's not the same focal distance.
So tell us about the tool that you just put in.
I am using the Bernina gripper rings. I love these. We can thank Vince Bernina for getting these for us. They're made by Martelli for Bernina, and they take a lot of the tension out of your arms. It really controls that quilt. They're kind of heavy, and it controls the quilt. There's cork on the bottom, and that way when I'm stitching, I don't quilt in my wrists.
Okay.
You know what I mean when you're quilting in your wrists? So I'm going to keep it on BSR2, and I'm going to enable the Kickstart feature. And what that does is when I hit the heel portion of my foot pedal, it's going to turn on.
Okay.
And then when I hit it again or hit the screen, it's going to turn off.
Okay.
So I do large areas of free motion like
And you're not
this.
having to use the foot to do that.
And I'm not having
All
to
right, so
use
go
the
ahead
foot.
and stitch a little bit.
Okay, so I'm going to enable that Kickstart. And I turn it on, and it waits for me because I'm in BSR2. And now I can just concentrate on my design. And do you see how I'm quilting really from my upper arms? That's really important. That's going to save your wrists over time. Because, you know, we do tend to get repetitive stress injuries if we're not careful.
Sure. I really like the fact that not only does this machine, the table goes up and down, but you said to me before we started, it really helps you ergonomically because if you get tired in one position, even just sitting down, you could raise it 2 or 3 inches and it makes a difference on how you'll sit.
Right,
and I think
sometimes
that's really
it's
good.
just that extra inch that makes you put your shoulders back. Oh, yeah, so, you know, I love encouraging people to just try new things. Try quilting different things because it is about texture.
So let's talk about texture. Tell us about this.
Okay, so on this side you can see it's an applique piece, and I wanted really to make these areas puffy, so I did that with dense quilting. And in this case, you're better than the computer for things like that, because this would take you forever to digitize.
Just to figure out.
But really, I quilted. You can see here, if you looked at it, it's not perfect. Like there's times I don't hit my line, but on the front, you can't see that.
Yeah, it looks great. All right. And then the dividing and conquering and all of that, tell us about this.
So in this block, when we quilted, it was a more traditional block. And so I was using the shapes within the piecing to divide and conquer. But you can do that with more modern quilts too. So this quilt, you can see I had these elements, these square elements throughout the quilt, and then I went in the background and I took thicker thread.
And did that.
And I echoed that, and then any fill would have worked.
Fill, that's awesome. Well, when we come back, we're going to get to see your quilts and more quilting and get to know you a little bit more. Everybody, it's A Day with Amanda Murphy right here on the Quilt Show. Don't go anywhere. It's going to be a wonderful show.